Okay, so this devlog is not for everyone. This is going to be a very technical addendum to my last devlog. And in this, I'm just going to talk about camera speed, because what I said about camera speed in my last devlog became immediately outdated. In my last devlog, I was still trying to change the camera by changing its X position manually, but it became immediately apparent that that was going to be still too jerky. It was still going to change too rapidly to feel comfortable for players. So instead now, I'm actually tying the camera's movement to an object that has an in-engine movement. I'm using Click Team Fusion, and I made an active object and gave it bouncing ball movement, which is like the most basic movement, and I made it going right, and I've tried these different speeds. If I try to do this manually and tell the engine add 1 to the X position every frame, that's about speed 8 on the bouncing ball movement, and if I say add 2 to X position every frame, that's about speed 16. But there are all these speeds between 8 and 16 that add fractions of X coordinates. Like, presumably speed 12 is adding something like 1.5 to the X value every frame, and that's just harder to mimic manually. So I've created an object in the upper left-hand corner of every frame that will move between coordinates negative 60 and 60, but you can tweak these. Whatever your lead room is, negative that and positive that. And then I tell the camera, take that object's X coordinates and add them to the player's X coordinates, and that's where you are. So now it's just a matter of making that object move smoothly, making the change in X of that object resemble that parabola I was showing you earlier, but let's do an actual parabola, not just steps. Let's make the minimum speed something like 5 and the maximum speed something like 13. Here I'm graphing the change in X every frame at speed 5, and you can see it's inconsistent because it's changing by fractions of an X, and here I'm doing the same thing at speed 13. But okay, so what will our equation look like? Well, we want a parabola, so let's start with X squared. That's upside down. We'll do negative X squared, but now the peak is 0, 0. That's not what we want. I eventually came up with this equation. Z squared minus X squared and all that over Z squared, where Z is the goal X position of the camera. I'm using the X-axis to represent X coordinates of the camera and the Y-axis to represent speed of the object. And what this equation does is it spits out 0 at the goal X positions of the camera, which we want the minimum speed to be what it spits out there, but that's going to be easy to manipulate. We'll just add the minimum to this equation. And it spits out 1 at the peak, which is going to be another easy variable to manipulate. If we just multiply the difference between the minimum and maximum speed to that, then we're adding that total, which is 1 times that difference, to the minimum speed because we already added plus minimum speed to the equation. And that means that we'll get the maximum speed at the peak. And now there's a gradual build up and let down from that maximum speed. Here's me graphing change in X every frame, and here's me graphing X position every other frame. And here's the new camera being implemented in-game. So sorry, I really jumped the gun on the last devlog because I hadn't tested the movement speed fully, but this new movement speed is a lot smoother, works a lot better, and is really here to stay. Also, now you can finally adjust the movement speed of the camera in the camera settings. So thanks for watching, and the next devlog will be more game design philosophy like the normal ones.